Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Move Daily Talks. I'm your host, Tracy Steen. Today, I'm talking with Dr. Karl Knopf. Dr. Knopf has been involved with the health and fitness of older adults and the disabled for more than 40 years. During this time, he has worked in almost every aspect of the industry, from personal training to therapy to consultation. While at Foothill College, Karl was the coordinator of the Adaptive Fitness Technician Program and Lifelong Learning Institute. He taught disabled students and undergraduates about corrective exercises. In addition to teaching, Karl has developed the Fitness Educators of Older Adults Association to guide trainers of older adults. I thought that he would be such a great guest. We do have some older adults who listen to this podcast. I'm becoming an older adult. So I thought it was really important to learn a lot of specifics about fitness, wellness, and nutrition as it relates to us as we age. So let's welcome to the podcast, Dr. Karl. A lot of us have heard the term functional fitness before, but what exactly does that mean? Well, my guest today, Dr. Karl Knopf, is going to talk to us about exactly what that might mean, especially as we age. Welcome to the podcast, sir.
Well, thank you so much for including me. I'm excited to be sharing some information with you and your listeners.
Yes, and let's jump into that topic then about functional fitness. We're aging. There are things that we want to do in our lives and stay active doing. For example, maybe lifting the suitcase into the overhead bin, climbing the stairs, pushing a cart, pulling a child, all of these things. But how important is it that we practice this term and what we know as functional fitness?
You know what's interesting? When I first started doing this, I was a young person and I started working with older adults and I ended up turning into one. So I don't know, maybe contagious.
That happens, doesn't it? Yeah.
But it's interesting. When you're young, in your 20s and 30s, you're exercising to look good.
Sure.
When you're in
Yeah.
your middle age, you start to get that, oh my gosh, I'm getting overweight. I might have some diabetes. I might have some hypertension. So in middle age, you start to exercise for the health of it. And then when you get older, you got to start exercising for the function of it.
Right.
And what upsets me is all this anti-aging stuff.
Okay.
So many people want to find it in a pill. They want to find it in a bottle. They want to find it at a surgeon's office or so forth. But the silly thing is, Ponce de Leon knew it long ago. It's not in the fountain of youth, but the fountain of youth is in exercise.
Yeah.
But all the things that we could do to increase, and I think the other thing, so many people want to live long. I read every day I see something. Here's a longevity pill. I don't think most people want to live long and live in the back room of a nursing home.
Yeah.
So what you and I are going to talk about today is how can I live with a quality of life? How can I function to the day I die? And I think Dr. Bort said it once very well. What you do today will determine how you age tomorrow. Because some of
Yeah.
your listeners may say, gosh, Karl, that's great advice. Where were you 20 years ago? But as someone who's done this for a long time with some very frail elderly people, and elderly is a term that some people don't like, but when I met with a lot of folks, they couldn't get out of a chair.
Yeah.
They were in a wheelchair. And I'm not saying exercise is a panacea that's going to replace medicine or anything like that. But if we could do a daily dose of physical activity every day, and many people my age, we grew up with the Cooper Institute of Aerobics. So we all were hot and running. We all ran, even though our bodies couldn't tolerate it, we ran. We beat up our joints. But we didn't want to strength train. This sounds a bit sexist and it's not intended to, but women tended to avoid strength training back.
Totally. Totally. What no one was in the, I mean, very few women were in the gym 20, 30, 40 years ago. Absolutely. It was a man's world. And part of that, made us intimidated to go in until it started to shift, which I'm so glad it did. But I think still to this day, some women feel that intimidation, don't
Yeah,
they?
and a lot of women, and even some guys may be listening. Well, I don't want to get big, bulky muscles. I'm a swimmer. I'm a tennis player. I don't want to get muscle bound. And there was that thought back in the 70s and 80s. I'm going to get muscle bound, and that's not going to happen. It takes a lot of work to get big and strong and cut, and it sometimes takes some chemical inducements to do it
Sure.
too. So,
Fair
so
enough.
you mentioned it earlier. What is functional fitness? Functional fitness is what do you want to do tomorrow I want to be able to get out of my chair.
Yeah.
I want to go for a walk with the grandkids. I want to go and play pickleball. Uh, And what I often laugh at is so many people want to play tennis or whatever. You need to be fit to play tennis. You need to be fit if you want to get that. I've had students who wanted to get that free ski pass. So after a certain age at the ski resort, you get free skiing. Well, you better be in shape to do that. So functional fitness is what's important to you, and then try to find exercises that will foster greater strength. So I want to be able to walk the dog. I just I just made the mistake of getting a Labrador Retriever puppy,
Oh,
which I thought was cute at 12 pounds, and
they
now it's
always
cute at
are.
87 pounds. So I've got to work my upper body. I've got to work those muscles that can control that dog. I got to be able to walk every day. So what's important? Like you said, can I pick up the bag of dog food? Can I
Yeah.
pick up a grocery cart? Can I do those things? Because I think too often at my age, you go to the grocery store and they go, "Sir, can I take the groceries out to you?" No, I don't want you to take the groceries out to me. I want to, well, if you would do, then you better come home and put them in the car for me and back. So the point is, what's important to you? I want to be able to lift the bottle. So find exercises that will foster your improvement in quality of life. And I think what you and I are talking about today, it's all about quality of life.
Yeah.
That
And
makes
what I love about what you said there is that you have some students that you're working with who were possibly sedentary, not moving, and not healthy. And then you've moved them to a place where they can do more functional things. I think to an Instagram video that I just saw a few days ago, and it was an elderly woman who was chair bound, and every day for they showed a series of videos, and it looked like it was about 30 times that whoever it was that was helping her, a trainer or a physiotherapist or what have you, was helping her to stand up and to stand up. And so he would grab her full body initially, and then it went to her hands, and then it went to supporting her waist. And then eventually she finally did it. And, she was in her 80s or 90s and was completely sedentary, not moving. And then because she had a drive and a desire to improve her fitness, she decided for herself, I'm going to do it. And she did it. And so,
yeah.
do you see that a lot? Do you see a lot of older people or those in the older generation there who sort of have given up and think it's too late? And if they do say it's too late, what do you say to that?
Boy, that's a tough one. But it's never too late.
Yeah.
Is you look at what activities do you want to do, and you don't want, and I think we talk about the importance of being independent. So many people don't want to be relying on someone to help them. So you find activities that replicate the things that are important to their life, and then you build that into the routine. And you don't have to be intimidated by, oh, I got to go to the gym. You could do. I had a student or a client one time. Her goal was she wanted to go to Europe to see her grandson graduate from college, but she was an Henriot gal. Said, I'm not going to be pushed through the damn airport in a wheelchair.
There you
And
go.
that was her motivation. So you find what your hot button is. And so
Sure.
she was very frail. She could be, and this is going to date me, but there used to be a thing called the Reader's Digest.
Oh yeah, I
Or,
know. My
or,
parents
or
had that.
or a TV guide. And she was so frail, she could barely lift up a TV guide. She couldn't get up. But we started with that TV guide, lifted it, just moving her arms out to the side. She could barely get out of the chair. And she didn't want to buy equipment because she goes, I'm on a fixed income. I can't be wasting money on weights and exercise at my age. So we started with just the TV guide. We progressed to a heavier book to finally we were working with the book War and Peace. So you start where you're at and you go, and that's the key is so many people go, Karl, 20 years ago, I was a super athlete. Start where you're at today, not where you were. As we get older, we're often reminding, oh, how good I was, I'll never get back there. Well, so what? But if you
Yeah.
don't start today, where are you going to be 5 years from now? So it's important. You find that client's hot button, and everybody's got something that's important to them, whether it's attend a graduation or a wedding and so forth. So you find that hot button to motivate them to do that.
Yeah, I think thinking ahead of what your desire is, where you want to be, exactly what you said, really, really fine tuning that. Then you're reverse engineering all those microprocesses, but you also want to keep in your mind's eye of what could happen if you do nothing, right? Like if I look back and just kind of say, if nothing changes right here, where will I be in 5 years from now? And so I think that's a good practice of thinking forward of what you want to do, but also saying, what am I afraid to become if I do nothing? Right. And
And
let
and
that motivate us to propel us forward.
and that's a good point too, to look at what the cost of nursing care home is.
Sure.
And if I can just not spend the 10 grand a month and it being in the back room of a nursing home, that's a good motivation for a lot of us. And I did a little booklet one time on aging in place. So most people want to live in their own home, and whether that's in a retirement community, but they want to live where they can, it's their home. And that's
Sure.
what you need to do, is what can you do to maintain this function within your house?
Yeah. So when you talk about strength training, do you see that differently than weight training?
Well, it's interesting. I think most people, again, think that they think of strength training or weight training, weight training. And weight training basically is what we, as a sport, we watch the Olympics, there's powerlifting, there's Olympic lifting. So that's kind of weight training. And some people get turned off by that. Well, I can't snatch 100, 2,200 pounds overhead. I can't go there. So that's weight train lifting is basically a sport. Whereas weight training is anytime you involve some type of weight you're lifting. And a funny story, then it's going to be goofy, but so what? There's a story about Venus de Milo, who was an old Greek god or what have you. And so he started out, he got a baby calf. And every day he lifted that calf up. Now, the interesting thing is every day that calf got a little heavier. He had to then adapt his strength to lift that calf until it finally became a big cow. So that's what we call about weight training, is taking a weight and progressively increasing the load. And it can be done with a kettlebell, it can be done with a dumbbell, a barbell, what have you, or rocks, anything. Whereas then we talk about strength training, which is kind of a more global term, but strength training can involve exercise bands, body weight exercises. So there's a whole progression of different ones, but don't let the terms scare you off. As long as you're doing something that progressively challenges your muscles every day. As we said earlier, it could be that TV guy that weighs 6 ounces, where to later you're lifting 15, 20 pounds. But not compare you. And that's what often scares me when I'm on this Facebook page and every day I see this, oh, look like this 60-year-old guy that's a specimen. Well, that turns off a lot of people. I'm never going to be a specimen. So don't focus on these other people. Be the best you can be where you are right now with, as you said, where's my goal down the road?
We sure do see a lot of that in social, which I mean, of course we do. Those are the videos that get a lot of likes, which propel them into our algorithm, and then we can see, where people are at. And yes, you're right, we can get discouraged. I think that sometimes what happens is that we think we have to start where they're at, even though they've been doing it for 20, 30, 40 years. And that is not the case, right? I always tell our members and those who follow us on our YouTube channel, you need to start light and work your way up, because the goal is to always be able to show up again tomorrow, right?
Exactly.
Sustainability for the long haul is the goal here. And I think it comes back to that mindset. And correct me if you think this is wrong, but it comes back to that mindset where we want things quickly. So let's take a pill, fix this, fix that, make a shift. I'm going to do what she's doing because I'm going to get there quickly. And really, I feel like even though sometimes we're desperate, that is the wrong mindset to have, right? I think this shift in saying, okay, I want a healthy lifespan. I want to live longer. I want this longevity. I want to be able to do the things that I have, waited my whole life to do in retirement. And yeah, I'm going to make that my priority. But yeah, what do you think about
But
that?
you brought up an excellent point. Is some people, well, where do I start? Dr. Kate Lorick, who was at Stanford for a long time, she had a perfect analogy, and she really said, we aim for the real, ideal, but live in the real. And the key is, how do I know how much weight to lift? Well,
Hmm.
she had a great thing, and she worked with a lot of arthritic patients and clients. The 2 hour rule is the best answer I've ever heard. How
Okay,
do you
explain.
feel 2 hours post exercise? And
Okay,
so if you're
good.
hurting 2 hours from now, then maybe I did too much. It doesn't mean quit tomorrow. It means I need to back off something. And then how do you feel tomorrow morning? And so you look at how you felt, and then you make your measurements of how you would, what exercise you're doing, and base it on that. Because too many personal trainers, or if you pick up a program online, they have this model that everybody has to prescribe to. And not everybody should be doing overhead lifts. Not everybody should be doing squats or leg lifts. You find a program that's individualized and adapted for you. As I did, I taught adapted PE at the community college for 40 years. And every student we had did a different program. You individualize the program for that person's, their goal, for their motivations and their abilities. You go from there.
Yeah. What has made you so fired up about this in your own life? We always have a story of sort of how we started in the career that we're now passionate about. So how did that all start for you? I'm curious because you seem like you're like, woo, really fired up about this.
Well, I thank you for saying that. And it's interesting. It is funny. It's a funny question. I never had anybody ask me that. But I've always enjoyed exercise.
Yeah.
And it's funny, as a person who was a quasi decent athlete, I always liked the training part of sports rather than the competition. I mean, I was one who I'd rather have been in the gym working out. I'd rather have been running laps or whatever than competing against someone. So I've always had that odd thing that I liked to exercise, and I wasn't afraid of sweating. But so it was interesting. I've had that passion, and now when I started all this 50 years ago, I was kind of like Jack Lane. We were kind of quacks, Women don't lift weights. You don't do this. If you're not even old enough to remember that girls weren't allowed to play full court basketball for many years.
Really?
Because they had reason there. I won't go into the details of what they thought would happen to the girls. But so I've kept that. And then so like my master's thesis, I looked at strength training when no one was looking at strength training. I looked at the benefits of strength training on paraplegics. So we did a study, and we found that that's when we got into functional fitness. Hey, we make them stronger. They might be able to ambulate with crutches. They'll be able to get out of their wheelchair. They're going to be transferred. And you gave me flash on it. You asked the question, so I'll ramble on about it. There was this young guy. He was a disabled vet, and he had this all-terrain vehicle that was, I swear, it must have been 3 or 4 feet off the ground. Every therapist in the hospital said, you got to get rid of that truck. There's no way you in a wheelchair are ever going to be. And darn it, this guy, that was his motivation. I'm going to get into that truck. And I don't know how he did it because I don't know anybody. So that was his motivation. And then I did my doctoral dissertation on the benefits of exercise for head trauma. And this was long before we talked about brain injury. But again, it was, what can we get these guys to do? And I say guys, not to be sexist, but it was at the VA. How can we get these guys to go back and be able to live at home and be able to, they were post-stroke, some of them were gunshot wounds. But again, how can we get these guys to ambulate? How can we get them to live independently at home without being a chore for their significant other to get them out of the chair? I mean, because every day, I don't care how good your caregiver is, or your spouse, or your wife, or husband, whatever, they don't want to be the one that takes you and gets you out of the wheelchair and puts you on the commode. That just kind of ruins the romance. So how can we get these guys to be as independent as possible? Then fortunately, thank you for saying I got the motivate. Because I still have the passion for this,
Yeah, well, we can hear that. That's awesome. That's interesting with your work with paraplegics, and I feel like not only were you giving them the skills in terms of strength training for mobility, but it sounds too like you were also giving them dignity.
Thank you. I hope we were. I mean, because and I lived in that world of PC. We went from the terms of using handicap, and that's an interesting story. If you know the word where handicap came from, if you don't, back I think after World War I, this crippled, and there's another strong word. Crippled men would sit on the corner with their cap in hand, and people would come by and give donations, put a cap in their hand. Thus, the word handicap.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of interesting. So we try to eliminate the word handicap
Yeah.
and crippled and all those terms that are somewhat derogatory, to move it to disabled, or then even more PC is differently abled. So that we went through that whole progression of how do we adapt exercise and to the person to make them as capable as possible. Again, being old, and we were pretty much involved with the beginning of wheelchair sports, wheelchair basketball. We had a wheelchair basketball team at the VA, and to see these guys, sometimes you wondered they're going to get more hurt by doing it. But again, we got them involved in. And one of the things, since Thanksgiving's around the corner, I had a turkey trot. So we had a turkey trot. We got the doctors, the nurses, the OTs, the PTs, and the guys in their chairs to do this part of this obstacle course for turkey. So again, you got to, and you're right, because you look like a fun person. You got to make it fun. So
Yeah.
we talked about originally functional fitness. Keep fun in functional fitness. If it's a chore, people aren't going to do it, because you
Yeah.
all know in your head what's good for you. But to get that message from your head to your toes, it's a hard way to get moving if you're just thinking about it.
Yeah, I think variety is very helpful for me anyway. If I'm going to continue this, and I've been in the fitness world for 25 years. I've gone to a gym ever since I was in my early 20s. So for the better part of 25, 30 years. And yeah, you need to have that dangling carrot to switch it up, right? You need to have something to work toward. And I find, like, I think of the paraplegics that you were working with, there was certainly a target, right? There was something that was driving them. The elderly person in a wheelchair or who's lost mobility, who's working on that, again, a real defined target. Let's get you standing, let's get you walking, get you climbing stairs. And I think that when we have something that we're working towards, it can be a real great driver and motivator, to reach that goal, can't it?
You made a very important point there. I don't know if you recognize how intelligent you are,
Oh.
but and for when I was younger, I used to do triathlons.
Okay.
Not so much because I thought I was going to be good at it. It was because what you said, cross training. So one day maybe you'd run, the next day you'd swim, maybe the next day you'd bike. So again, you weren't overusing your body parts. So you'd cross train. So you make every day a little, even now, I mean, I still exercise every day, but I do. I try to go for a walk, maybe a bike ride, go for the pool. And then even like today, I was thinking, I was exercising before you came. I have a little gym at home. And I said, well, I'm getting kind of tired of this. So I don't have to do tricep extensions the way I've done it for the past 6 weeks. I can maybe think of doing wall push-ups. I can think about maybe chair dips. So again, you're absolutely right. Make variety the spice of your life. Make every day can be a little different. I think we get locked into that mode of like the bodybuilders. Every day I have to do this certain workout. Your muscles don't care where the resistance is coming from. It can be coming from a pull-up bar, a chin-up bar, a weight machine, what have you.
And here's what I think. So I've been a personal trainer for 17, 18 years. And when someone has a specific goal, maybe they have like, I want to increase lean muscle tissue, we can create periodized programs where we take the same weekly workout structure and then repeat it. But when you're talking about someone who's going for functional fitness, when they're going for, health span, longevity, I really think there can be that big variety. Exactly what you were saying. We don't have to do the 5 big lifts every week and ensure we get our deadlift, the squat, the chest press, the row, the shoulder press, right? We can switch things up and add in these different things because I think it's that variety, they say, is the spice of life, but it's also going to keep us coming back to go, okay, what's next this week? What's new this week? What can I try that's a little bit different to keep me motivated and stimulated? You've been in it for
Excuse me for interrupting, but
yeah,
you kind of got me all excited on that one
yeah,
because you almost as a trainer, you always come in with your little bag of tricks of all your exercise you're going to do. But I'm almost thinking if you're going to go to someone's home, look around their house. Maybe you train them how to push the garbage can out to the street, how to pick up the hose that's on the ground that's kind of a drag to pick up, how to squat down and pick up the chair. So as a trainer who goes to people's homes, rather than try to bring the gym to their home, hey, let's look around the house. What do you have difficulties doing? And
yeah.
and go from there. I think you made a very excellent point with what you said.
Yeah. And why do they have difficulties doing it? Like what are we noticing then as trainers? What are we seeing in their form, in their posture, in their mobility? Can they not squat down because they their heels can't stay on the ground, in which case there could be a tight Achilles or tight calf muscles. And how can we, work to improve flexibility or mobility in those arenas? So if people were looking to build their own home kit, a home gym type of thing, yes, looking around, seeing what you can use, what's usable. What else would you say is an important component for if you were going to be doing workouts in your home regularly?
Well, let me first start with I think the basic exercise program I think I would do if I was going to go to home or if I were one of your listeners, I would work on doing the sit to stand. There's a couple professors at Cal Fullerton who designed a program, and we worked on it with some program. We had a little program. How many sits to stands can you do in a minute? So just sitting in the chair where you're at right now, stand up, sit down. How many can you do in a minute? Write that number down. Okay, the 6th of November, I can do 3.
Yeah,
Come back 6 weeks from now. Let's see. That's the motivator. So
sure.
and the other thing I would do without buying equipment is do wall push-ups. And you talked about the Achilles heel, so kind of like you're doing a calf stretch. So you get a little calf stretch while you do it. Try to touch my nose to the wall and back. Some wall push-ups. Then as you get stronger, maybe you go and put your hands on the chair. And then the other thing I would try to do is um, a fun thing that we used to do in class is put your back to the wall, like skiers used to do. You put
Mhm.
wall squats and just stand there. I know it's isometric, so you got to be concerned about blood pressure and all that. And then as you want, if you want to buy something, maybe get some exercise bands and
Mhm.
just start with some basic exercise bands and just moving that, and then some light dumbbells. And I think then you'd have a great way to start.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of variety that you can certainly do with those sorts of things. And some of the things that you are suggesting here sound like it's important to measure progress, right? So you start, let's see where you're at. Let's come back there frequently to test that ability. And then we set a new target for you. How important is that to track our progress as we move forward?
Oh, it's the best motivator of all, isn't it? I mean,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, how often do we say, okay, I'm going to get on the scale? Gosh, I weigh X today. Gosh, tomorrow I weigh X minus a quarter of a pound. I'm going to stay
Yeah.
on this diet, you know?
Woohoo.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that is the best motivator of all. Where you know where you're at, and then if you see progress, I mean, I get on that scale every day.
Yeah.
Some days I'm happy, some days I'm not. And but you go with that. I mean, there's some simple things people, I'll just ramble on for a second. Some of the things we do with that older adult fitness assessment, and now it's funny, I laugh now at this because now that I'm old, I went from a Medicare appointment. They go, we want you to get up, go out there, touch the wall, and come back. Well, that was one of the tests that we designed for older adult fitness. How quickly could you get out of the chair, go out, walk out 6 feet, turn around, and come back? So that's an
Yeah.
easy thing people can do. How
Yeah.
many sit to stands? Can you sit in your chair and reach out there and touch your toes? And so you
Yeah.
don't have to do fancy assessments and go to an exercise physiologist. You can do a lot of things. Write these down, measure. Gosh, today I sit out here, I'm talking to you. I can reach out, I can touch my kneecaps. Well,
Yeah.
maybe if you'll invite me back for another interview, maybe I'll be able to touch my ankles as I sit in my chair and reach. So again, find a little pretest that works for you and measure yourself periodically and use that as a motivator.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is some great advice there. Thinking about our audience again, do you have anything else that you would encourage the older exerciser to do as they are moving forward toward better health?
I think to be prudent, when one of the fortunate things at the college, we asked people to all make sure that they were medically approved to be exercising.
Mm.
Because you said it earlier, too often people forget that, yeah, age has happened. And
Mhm.
so make sure that they're cleared by their doctor to do certain exercises. Also ask the doctor or the therapist, what exercises should I avoid? Because it's
Yeah.
so easy to go online and say, gosh, this person's doing this exercise. It may not be best for them. If they've got a shoulder problem, maybe, for example, I have a neighbor who had a total shoulder rebuild. he wanted to go back and swim. And I said, I don't think you should go talk. And of course, the orthopedist says you can do the breaststroke, but you can't do the crawl. So that
Sure.
while you can still swim, there's certain things you maybe shouldn't do. So I think always getting medically cleared before you do anything.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. See if anything is contraindicated for you, because again, the goal is always to be able to show up again tomorrow. Uh, where can people find you? What sort? I know you've written a book, so can you tell us about where they can find you, how they could work with you, even?
Well, I am retired, so and I kind of miss working. But the new book that we're talking about today, it's called the Strength Training Bible for Seniors, and I know some people don't want to be called seniors. I think that's a silly weirdness, because if I was the senior VP of a corporation, I'd be honored. No, I'd rather be a senior in high school than a freshman. So
Fair
I think
enough.
senior. So if you don't like the word senior, I apologize. We call it chronologically gifted. We'll change it in the book. I've written about, and I sounds like I'm bragging, but you can look me up under Ulysses Press. I've written about 20 books for them, from beat arthritis, beat osteoporosis, therapeutic exercise. So um, I I think I have a presence online, but I don't really do anything anymore.
Okay, no, that's great. I will
But yeah,
list those
Ulysses
books.
Press has most of my stuff. And I even find, I kind of laugh. I guess Amazon carries all my books.
Yeah, I
They're not
bet.
very expensive, so I'm not getting rich by this.
I have a book on there too, and neither am I. That's okay. I'll list those in the show notes below, though, folks, if you are interested in that. Well, thank you so much for joining, Dr. Karl. We appreciate your insight, especially as we age and look to be more fit and healthy and optimize that health. As always, go move daily in your fitness, wellness, and nutrition. We'll see you all in the next Move Daily Talks.